Here, I got a story that happened actually in our most recent D&D session. So, this actually starts, the problem starts in the session before. Also, let me put, no, I'll still have Steam in front. So the problem starts before in the previous session. So at the end, our DM had rolled. I read at the perfect time. Morgan, I'm gonna tell the story of the Pantheon of the Pond. So it starts in the previous session with our DM rolling a random counter, and he asked the player to because it was a little more fun to see us roll it, and the player rolled a 98. Now, the 98 ended up being this. Going down the trail, and we have to roll a perception check. A very, very high one, but I managed to hit a nat 20, I'm pretty sure, and succeed. So, I hear flapping of wings, and I say to our rogue, oh, there's something off really far in the distance, something that's flying. And they go off to check it out. And as they sneak over to check it out, they find that there is a lot of Lokatha running from something. Lokatha are catfish people, by the way. So they're running and making various catfish noises. I'm not sure what you would describe, but our DM made a horrific noise that I don't want to hear again. And they notice that there's loud rumbling and like trees falling over. And they see an ancient black dragon storming through the forest, melting Lokatha with his acid breath. Now, the first funny part of the story is when our rogue asked the DM how big it was, they misheard. Our DM said that the ancient black dragon's foot, just foot, was the size of the cart. So this thing was fucking huge. And we all heard this. This wasn't in secrets or anything. There's no secret. We just weren't there in character. But our rogue heard that the dragon as a whole was the size of the cart. So they proceed to return to the cart and tell us there's an ancient black dragon that's melting Lokatha. We gotta help. And we're like, an ancient black dragon? Nope. So we spend the next little bit being like, look, the best we can do is have you trail behind the dragon and see who survives the rampage of the black dragon. Meanwhile, after this, because the ancient black dragon is how the session here ended, we were like, man, what the fuck? And Lee was like, you guys are fucking bitches. And we're like, are you fucking stupid? And it turns out that our rogue thought that it was small. And we were like, no. An ancient black dragon, by the way, for those that do not know, is, I think our DM described it as being 60 feet long. It's big. And they are classified as a gargantuan, which means like D&D doesn't have a specific size for them. They just get bigger and bigger, and it's whatever the DM wants, and this was a really big bad bitch. So we were terrified, and after Lee the rogue learned of its size, Lee was also terrified. But then the next session we continue to plan. Iggy is going to trail behind and see the path of destruction, because it's fortunately not in our way. We can keep going and go away from the dragon to our destination. So our rogue is going to go trail and find survivors, and they do. So they find a Lokatha trapped under a tree and trapped in various places managing to survive the ancient black dragon with other piles of acidic goop that probably was a Lokitha, and frees them from their trapped places. And our rogue, if you didn't know, is a fire genasi. So they are like fiery and magical and colorful. And these Lokitha are like super tribalistic people. They are just they don't speak common. They hide in the forest and they make noises with their throat to make sounds. So our rogue had no clue what they were saying. Sometimes I'm glad to be stuck in hell. Yeah. So then the Lokitha, after our rogue fails to persuade them to just go away and then go back to their home, proceeds to, as a group, pick up our rogue and try and take our rogue back to the home with them. Now, the whole time our rogue is like, oh, what do we do to communicate with these Lokitha? I'm just a rogue. I can't do anything. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, me and I'm sure several other players at this point are just like shaking in our seats because they're away from the party and we can't say anything. But before they left, we had set up telepathic communication with them at the end of the last session, and they forgot. So we're all sitting here being like, you just have to talk to us. You say a word, please. We can hear it. We have a mental link. Please. Please. And after like a solid 20 minutes of them like trying to figure this out, they snap their fingers and like, oh, I have telepathic communication. I'm like, oh, finally. So we proceed to convince them to just bring the Lokitha back so that we could communicate with them, because we have spellcasters and such that can do this. We finally do that, and our wizard sets up a link between our whole group and 2 of the Lokitha. And through this conversation, we basically try and ask, like, okay, so where's your home? Try and go there if it's still there, which it is, it's still good. And they seem to think that Lee, our rogue, our fire genasi, is a fire goddess. Alright. So we're trying to dissuade them from thinking that we're gods. Although I'm sure if Sophie was there, she would be living for this. But she wasn't, so we continued to dissuade. And we end up... They still think it. I'm pretty sure they still think we're gods. But we end up trying to teach them how to make walls and such to stop, like, invasions and intrusions. And they just pick up a whole ass tree as a group, like a bunch of huge ants. They just lift a tree out of the ground and bring it back to their home. And we're like, okay, if that's how it works. And they do that. So before they leave, we end up accidentally, or maybe intentionally, crowning one of the Lokitha we were speaking to High Priest of the Pantheon of the Pond. Because that's what they dubbed us, the gods of the Pantheon of the Pond. And we ended up trying to get them to at least change the name. And I think we settled on the Pond of Friends, or the Pond of Friendship, or something stupid like that, which is really funny. So I think in their culture, we are now the Pantheon of the Pond of Friends. And we ended up dubbing one of the Lokitha we were speaking to, his name was Mundi, and he is now High Priest of the Pantheon of the Pond of Friends. And gave us all god titles. So, let me try and remember. I can actually pull it up. Let me pull up all of our god titles. So, if I can go down to the bottom of my notes where I wrote them down. Me, the Twilight Cleric. I am the Moon God. Our wizard ended up being the God of Gifts because she gave a dagger to a Lokitha and Alokatha thinks it's a holy artifact. So now she is the god of gifts. Our rogue ended up being the god of mercy for saving the Lokatha from the ancient black dragon. Our Toriel, our warlock that unfortunately wasn't there, was titled the goddess of beauty. Our fighter, our half-orc fighter, ended up being called the god of bigness. Not big, not size, bigness. So that's his godly title. Our monk NPC that was traveling with us is called the god of squishy. Our plucky ranger ended up being called the god of health. Our plucky ranger our ranger ended up being called the god of pep. Our druid, Morgan, who wasn't there either unfortunately, ended up being called the god of health. So that's all our godly titles that we got assigned by a bunch of tribalistic fish. And that's the story of what happened at the end of last session. So that was fun. Maybe we'll go see him again. I don't know. They seemed nice. I already went in that room. But yeah, that's mostly the story. Other things happened after that, but it wasn't nothing related to that. So Quinn is health because we had Samson draw a picture of Quinn. No, it's not Tank. It's because Samson drew a picture of him and we showed it to him, to Mundi, and told him she's not here right now, she's not here right now because unfortunately she's sick, but she'll get better and come back with us, and that's why you're the god of health, because you're supposed to get better. That was the story we gave Mundi. Venerik ended up being the god of squishy because he was gonna be the god of mean, but our wizard was like, no, he's not mean, he's squishy, and started like squishing his cheeks. And then he said, oh, god of squish. So yeah, that was fun. That was our last session. It's funny that I'm god of the moon, considering I pray to the actual god of the moon. Making sure I don't commit any heretical acts while in this title, but you know. But yes, Mundi, the high priest of the pantheon of the Pond of Friends. That was our story from last session. Good times. There's a lot of like really weird independent things that happen in our campaigns. Like our sci-fi campaign is one long what the fuck story, whereas our 5e stories are all just like independent and like contained what the fuck stories. Yeah, there's a... D&D can be wild. D&D can be very wild. We never dealt with the black dragon, by the way. Maybe next time. I don't know. That's a bit above our pay grade, by the way. We're like level 12 or 11. Not me. No thank you. Ancient Black Dragon is like a job for a whole group of level 20 adventurers. So... we're only a little over halfway there. Oh, my bag is full. Is there anything I could get rid of? Fuck, I don't need this. I don't want mail. Is there any other stories that I could tell? Do Pokemon constantly get hurt if they're poisoned in your bag? Yes, they do. In this game, they do. I think they took that out in Generation 5. But this game, they do get hurt, and it sucks, and I'm sad. Yeah, you make sure to always have an antidote on my bag. It's doing a wish. Look at that Volbeat wiggle his butt. Ah! It wiggled too hard. Hold up. I don't like it the way it's wiggling. It's wiggling bad. Is there any other 5e stories I can tell? Twerking bug. That's basically it. It just twerks in different ways. Any other 5e stories I can tell that I haven't? Because I'll save the stars without number stories for the thing we're doing. 5e stories. I'm trying to think. It's hard to think of like individual stories that would make sense without trying to throw a ton of context. There's a small story I can tell that came from the one Morgan DM'd about what happened to my shifter barbarian. Oh, blood portal jumping was fun, so I'll tell that one first while we're on Parker's campaign. So we had, as a group, had been following some goblins, and we knew that they were using blood portals, which was illegal. Blood magic is very illegal, to teleport some of their live victims to some undisclosed location, and we didn't know where, but we were just trailing the goblins, and we were making our way down to a big elven city. So we get to a town, and we meet some people and do a whole town things. None of the town was relevant to the story, but at the end of the day, one of the town's members ends up getting kidnapped by goblins in a blood portal overnight, and in the morning, they end up, we end up fighting some goblins that show up in town to raid it. So we beat them because we are very experienced adventurers. And one of them has a note, and it is instructions on how to use the blood portal. Now, we end up saying, okay, out of character, we just got this note from our DM telling us how to use a blood portal. So my brain and on others, and many people, just like, let's use the goblin blood to make our own blood portal, because that'll lead us to where they kidnap the people, and then we can save them. This was apparently the wrong answer, by the way. This was not how we were supposed to do this. So, fortunately, between me and our warlock, I was playing a sorcerer at the time who had proficiency in Arcana, we were able to reconstruct a blood portal using these instructions. Our DM the whole time, feeling very frustrated, because this was a bad thing. This was a very bad thing. He ended up having us roll Arcana again when it was activated. And we rolled middle of the road. I think I rolled like a 15 or something. And we ended up traveling all the way to the big capital city of the elves using this blood portal. And skipping like half the campaign he had planned. So this is the part where I can now tell you of out of character and what was in Parker's mind. We were not supposed to use the blood magic to use the portal. If we had succeeded fully and rolled high enough on Arcana, we would have been teleported into the middle of a goblin camp. So That, if we had succeeded, would have led us all to being either captured or killed. My question to Parker, then, is why the fuck did we get the instructions to this if we weren't supposed to use it? Because in my mind, it's like, DM gives note. Note says, here's how to do thing. I think this is a clue. I'm still like, he's frustrated that we did it that way, but I'm still just wondering, like, why'd you give us the note then? They could have just not had the note. It's like, we knew they were doing the blood magic already. It's not like we pieced together that the goblins were doing this. Like, we already knew, it's just they had a note on them afterwards. But yeah. So that's the story of the blood portal jumping. I got me a cheeseburger and fries to enjoy this story. I kind of want a cheeseburger. I think my brother's making burgers. I want one. Now I'm hungry. But yeah, blood portal jumping. That's a mix of us overestimating what we do and I think a little bit of our DM not realizing what we would do when given information.